The March Finance Committee meeting to order. Motion to amend the agenda. Motion needed to amend the agenda to remove item 11A from the agenda. Rita, can I get a second? Thank you. Motion carried. All right, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Take a vote on that. All right. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion carried. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? All in favor? Okay, motion, I'm sorry, I'm way ahead of this right now. Rita, thank you. Second. Perkins, thank you. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Due to extended circumstances, legislator Sheridan will be attended remotely as announced, and legislator Terminelli will be attending remotely from 23 Walnut Street, Messina, and Mr. Forsythe is absent. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 27th? Reading. May I have a second? Perkins, thank you. Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries the field. All right, so getting to the next updates regarding the development authority of the North Country DNC. You can go ahead and come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gotta push a button here. Push that button right there, okay. Again, I'm Alex McKinnon and Mark Hall, and we are your appointed representatives to the Development Authority of the North Country. Just a few quick history lesson. The Development Authority was first created by New York State's legislature in response to the expansion of Fort Drum. It was primarily a Jefferson County thing. The first project involved housing because there was just not enough housing on the base to accommodate the increase. It came into St. Lawrence County a little bit. Illinois has some 801 housing. There may have been a few others, but it was primarily a Jefferson County project. St. Lawrence County got involved with it. I will say under a strain. The Board of Legislators decided not to do the incinerator, and suddenly we had to do something with tons of garbage because the 3 landfills that still maintain, I believe, I imagine you're spending $300,000 a year to move the water out of those, and we'll continue to do so. After the decision was made not to use the incinerator, and just before my time on the board, the decision was made to partner with the other counties and to become a partner in the Rodman landfill. The partners include the city of Watertown, Jefferson County, Lewis County, and us. There are 4 partners involved in it. And we are responsible for, and we will be a partner in that organization until such time as debt is paid, which essentially will be never, because there's always the possibility, there will always be the expansion is going to occur. And we're looking at 50 years now. We're looking at, well, the Rodman landfill is 1,500 acres. We're using about 300 of it now. There has to be a buffer zone maintained, but so anyway, to make a long story short, we then decided, and we also had things like flow control in place where all of the trash had to go to the Rodman landfill. Flow control was found unconstitutional, so we had other problems. And St. Lawrence County is unique in that about 60% of the trash is handled by a private concern, now called Casella. And that was causing certain problems. But anyway, all of that has straightened out. And now one of the biggest functions of the Development Authority is the Rodman landfill. Or more technically, our resource management facility. I encourage anybody, especially some of you who are maybe new, to at least once in your legislative career, go to the Rodman landfill. Because that facility is probably one of the only facilities in the North Country where every single man, woman, and child is impacted by and contributes to what goes into that landfill. And it really is what I call state of the art as far as landfills go. It has been recognized as good a landfill as there is probably in the state. It's one of, if not, I believe it to be the cheapest in New York State. So it's something you ought to go down and take a look at. And so I would encourage you, I would be happy to facilitate a tour. If you come down on Thursday, that's when all of the restaurants clean up for freezers, and you can go through picking and get some really good stuff for lunch. So it really is. Seriously, it's really something that you ought to see. You don't have to go down once, more than once. Once is enough, but you have an idea exactly what it is. Since that has, once that is that's the primary facility that we are using in St. Lawrence County. But my goal anyway, I guess I've been there 10 years or whatever it is to make sure that the Development Authority is more than just Jefferson County and the city of Watertown. And presently, the internet communications lines that go through the Development Authority started that 17 years ago, and it has become the standard for rural telecommunications advancement, where it's a public-private partnership where the Development Authority maintained and built the trunk line of fiber, and then private sector companies provide the last mile. And in a rural area like this, for example, in New York City, you can build 5 miles of fiber optic and have 1 million customers. And in St. Lawrence County, you can build 5 miles of fiber optics and have no customers. So there's a big difference. So in order to have the rural areas covered, at least have an opportunity for coverage, it was important that the Development Authority build that line out and own it. And presently, that's what we're doing. And then we rent the space to whoever wants to use it. And we're also actively involved with your telecommunications committee, trying to be in a good position so that when money becomes available to do these last mile build outs, that we can do a good job and provide service to these very relatively rural areas. The other thing that the Development Authority does is water and wastewater, which is very important. And that service is expanding in St. Lawrence County. I believe there are 8 towns now that are involved in that in some form. We have the water and wastewater are very regulated, licensed operations, and the Development Authority has the capability of providing that because of the economies of scale that we have. We own the water and sewer line that feeds Fort Drum, which is a major project where the water is taken out of the Black River. It's pumped up to the Fort Drum, where they use it with in combination with the wells, and the sewage comes back down. And there's another interesting thing, if you ever wanted to tour something, the waste treatment facility, the Warnick Pump Station, is an interesting place to come and see. But you don't need to see it. But it is an amazing facility because with those types of businesses, it keeps coming. If you have a leak, it doesn't make any difference. It keeps coming. If you have to fix the leak, you can't shut it off because it keeps coming. It keeps coming. If the electricity goes off for any amount of time, doesn't make any difference. It keeps running and keeps running because everything's coming downhill. And then at the low spot, it has to be pumped to the water tower. So to go in those buildings and see the huge pumps that have to be there and the huge generators that are in place. So when the power goes off, nothing gets interrupted. And then there's backups to all of that. So if something goes wrong, because it's the kind of work where it just doesn't stop. It's coming in. Especially now that we're in the process of redeveloping some of the lines. You have to be very careful that inspect these lines. So they have a thing that goes down through the line and takes pictures and looks at everything and measures carefully the thicknesses of the pipe and any places where they're getting to be a possibility of a leak beginning. And we're going to have to do quite a bit of reconstruction to make sure that we don't have any trouble. And in order to make reconstruction and interrupt, you can't interrupt the flow. You have to put a bypass in it too. So that works. We also have an engineering part of it, and that's that division has done a lot of work in St. Lawrence County where needed, where requested, and that has worked out pretty well. Just to give you a brief idea. Incidentally, the financials on the Rodman landfill, we're losing about $2.7 million a year in the rear. Even with we predict that with a $50 tip fee that will, and that's primarily because by rule, we have to depreciate the cost of the southern expansion, which has just occurred. We have to do that over seven years. It's not the life of the cell, it's a shorter period. So that we have almost a $6 million deficit in our budget just to cover that cost. So we're really about breaking even, maybe a little bit better than breaking even. But the problem is with a landfill, you try to do it as carefully as you can, and we do it as best as of any of the landfills in the area in New York State. But what happens if the water in Rodman, for example, starts to go bad? You have a problem, and you can't say, well, we'll see if we can't get a grant to fix it in a couple, 3 or 4 years. You have to be able to do it now. You have to say, well, today we're going to find out a problem. We got a problem, we got to find it out, we got to fix it. Today, you got to have the reserves to take care of that. So we have all of that in place so that if something did go wrong, we are in a good position to take care of making the repairs.
Yeah, I think that's important to know for the landfill is our future expansion needs to be funded and future closure costs need to be funded, and they are. And that's very important. I know as a municipality, as a former town supervisor, sometimes that stuff gets pushed down the road. We'll let somebody else worry about that. The authority's been very responsible to make sure that is fully funded. And I know we all complain about life costs too much. Our tip fees are too much. Everything is too much. But that all being responsible and still being cheaper than anywhere else, I think is a pat on the shoulder for the development authority.
Yeah, right. Some other things, we provided or will plan to utilize some of the loan funds that we have for a variety of purposes, business loans, housing loans, where grants are. I think you're using some of that now with your CBG whatever it is, grants, where you need administration for those grants, we have a division that does that through the Tri-County area. So, for example, this year, the Cambry Housing in Governor will get $1 million. The Herman Housing Development Fund will get 65,000. Cranberry Lake Mountaineer Snowmobile Club 80,000. 941 Echo Way in Ogdensburg 350,000. Potsdam Specialty Paper 157,000. Goko Messina LLC 300,000. We'll be assisting the town of Herman in writing a successful Main Street grant for 20,000 by our consultant for some structural analysis. We're working in the village of Messina, where their Affordable Housing Corp grant to assist 10 houses with owner-occupied rehabilitation projects. Town of Governor Community Development Block Grant for 10 households. St. Lawrence County received funds for 12 households with owner-occupied rehabilitation. And needless to say, the telecommunications thing is what you see. So other than that, we really don't do too much at all. So
I'd like to add a little bit to the telecommunications because I don't know if people understand. And you see a map of where the development authority has fiber and is providing these services. They're throughout St. Lawrence County, they're throughout the North Country. They're redundant so that if one area goes down, everybody doesn't go down. I think we had a nice presentation last fall. And they started out with, everybody remember the BASF commercial? We don't make the products you buy, we make the products you buy better. And I think with our telecommunications, we don't make the products you buy, we make it work. And I'm willing to bet most, if not every one of us in here, every time we're on our device, we're going through a dank line at some point. Every major carrier, AT&T, Verizon, rent space from the development authority. They, we don't pay the development authority, we pay our local internet provider. But they're going through dank trunk lines to get out to Syracuse or Albany, where you actually go out into the World Wide Web. So when you see a map, we don't just realize it, and it was stunning to me, the amount of fiber that the authority has out there that is making everything work. Because the big companies didn't want to come in and make that investment. And that's where the authority came in and made the internet what it is throughout the country.
one more thing that I wanted to mention to you, as again, my experience in where you are now. Please remember that when it comes to funding solid waste, that it always be left as an enterprise fund. And it's pretty successful here. There may be a couple of little areas that sneak out. Attorney Button may be one of them, where some work is being done by the administrator, not being paid into the fund, enterprise fund. But primarily, it's an enterprise fund. It's paid for by the users. And remember that our biggest users in St. Lawrence County don't pay real property tax. Colleges, schools, and university hospitals do not pay real property tax. So I remember one night a guy from St. Lawrence was here saying, "Oh, geez, you got to put a little of this on the budget." And I said to him, "I love you dearly, my friend, but we're not going to pay St. Lawrence." And that's exactly what would happen. And you know exactly what your cost is, what you're paying at the transfer stations or to Casella is what it costs to take care of this. And we did have a good relationship with you folks with regard to what was the Harrisville facility, and that's all been transferred to you. And so I think that worked pretty well. But other than that,
Yeah, the only thing I would add is please, if you get a chance, tour the facility. It's impressive. we did a tour last fall when they opened the new area, the new liner. And what impressed me is you can see the nuclear plants in Oswego from the top of the landfill. So there's a heck of a view up there. And it's an impressive facility. It's run well. And I would encourage everyone to get an opportunity, put a group together, and they'd be happy to give you a tour.
Question, Mr. Lakewood.
Mr. Hall,
Yes, sir.
thanks for coming, you and Alex, appreciate it. Can you tell us what Dank's doing at the moment with respect to Wi-Fi and providing that service, which is so sorely lacking in some areas of the county?
Well, the very first thing we had to do was be sure we knew exactly where these areas were.
Hmm.
So we've driven every road. And this was done several years back, knowing that money is going to become available. So you really need to be ready to go because the time it takes to do these kind of studies is expensive, where every possibility, every place has been looked at. And I think your telecommunications committee is in that position now to where when the money becomes available, we're going to be ready to go. It's not like you're going to say, well, the grant's coming, now we're going to have to get started trying to find out what to do. I think you're pretty much should be anyway, and I know you are. And I know the Development Authority is working regularly with that committee. Our Dave Wolf and his department is working and providing the support that you need. So when it's available, it's going to be ready, because that's the only source for us anyway. Or yeah, the only other possibility is satellites, and sometimes satellites just in the real upper northern parts of the country aren't necessarily as dependable. So
Let me follow up. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I was just gonna follow up a little bit. You know, the survey was a great first step, because how do you know where you don't have it if you're not sure where you don't? So the survey provided information to write grants to get these services out there. And I think, as we all know, we're at the hard part now. We're at the part where there might be 4 houses down the road that don't have service, and it's not profitable for these companies to go in and put that infrastructure in there. One we're doing right now is in the town of Pickering. NIPA has a fiber line going down its transmission line. And the Development Authority is providing middle mile for that to get to, can't remember how many homes, 13 homes in Pickering, some in Diana, and some over in another part of Lewis County. But working on, we're to the point we're doing smaller projects to try to get everybody covered.
Okay, so my question is, back a while ago, there was some talk of Dank selling off some of their assets with respect to Wi-Fi and et cetera. Is that died? Is that gone away, or is there still talk of doing that?
To my knowledge, that is dead.
very dead. The message was loud and clear.
Good.
And this group was provided a lot of that leadership. There's no questions. And as I said, it's now, it is what we have done in this northern area, in this very rural area. It is now the standard that people are following. And it's a public-private partnership that works in areas where the private sector just isn't going to come through because they can't.
Thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it. Good news.
The other
In
question?
regards to the trash in the Rodman landfill, isn't there a big difference in the way that trash and recyclables are handled between St. Lawrence County and Jefferson County in regards to the costs and the way things are done? Why is that?
St. Lawrence County has 0 sewer. And Jefferson County has 4 trash bins. And it works for them. And it seems to work for St. Lawrence County doing it in the other way. The difference is that you have to have a materials, what they call a MRF. It's a gadget that separates everything out when it gets down to wherever it's being handled. So it's the way we're doing it. I suppose it could be argued that it's better to do it. Jefferson County feels that their way is best. Recyclables at best has to be subsidized at some point, because the cost of collecting it and processing it into a reusable thing, that cost is always more than you're going to be able to sell it for. So someplace along the line, in the $50, we're subsidizing a little bit of that cost. And some days sometimes they're making a little bit of money on it, sometimes they don't. The Harrisville site will now become one, they haven't started it yet, but it'll be this spring, they'll start it up, and that's where all of the tires will go, mattresses will go there. They also are working on permitting for waste wood, stuff that could become composted, and take it to that Harrisville facility, which would be a lot more convenient for us than trying to take tires all the way to Rochester. So we're excited about that, the possibilities of that part.
So for the trash, isn't there a big differential in the cost of the trash haulers to take it to the centers in St. Lawrence County as opposed to Jefferson County? And does it all end up going to Rodman eventually anyway?
Trash, the trash, all of the trash from Lewis, Jefferson, town of Watertown, or city of Watertown, and St. Lawrence County, all goes to the Rodman landfill. Now, are there exceptions? I kind of think there might be some slipping out to other parts, but generally speaking, all of it goes that way. And it's important that we continue to do that, because as I said, we are responsible for the tonnage that goes in there. And if the Rodman landfill begins to have financial problems and something terrible goes wrong, we are going to be responsible for our share of what goes in. So, yeah, it all ends up at the Rodman landfill. Now, the recyclables go to, I guess it's the Casella, Liverpool, and they do whatever they do. And but the tires and mattresses are now in Rochester, but they will go to the Harrisville site as soon as that's get her done, they call it. And the development authority sold that site to them completely. We no longer have any involvement in it at all. But they seem to be quite excited about it. I know the DEC was very excited about it because they worked with that particular company on tire cams before. So, and there's a lot to it. I didn't realize it, but there's quite a market for used tires in overseas. You know, some of the tires that I guess we throw away are still around, but old there. But I never thought about that. I thought everything would be grounded up and put under playgrounds, but no, some of it can be marketed in other parts of the world.
So you mentioned that if Karen is giving 13 hookups, what role did they play in that? And is it fiber and you?
Yeah, what it is, the fiber, if you look at the 765 lines that come down through there, there's a little line, which is called the dark fiber that NIPA has. So they, as part of the expansion or to the rural areas, they contracted or asked the development authority, because of our reputation, to play a role in that, in the, not necessarily the last mile, but in the middle, so to speak. And that's underway, and if not completed, I don't know if it's completed.
I don't think it's completed.
But they're in the construction phase. And I think it's 120, not many, but that's just a good example of the development authority working with the NIPA people to provide internet service to a very small number of people because they didn't have it before. They only had dial-up, who knows? So gives you an example anyway of how that works. And it's, I think a little bit, maybe a little bit in Edwards, primarily in Pitcairn and some in Lewis County in those areas. I mean, Pitcairn is pretty remote. There's not a lot of people down there.
Can that be replicated? Other areas?
That's the whole point of this. Yes, as soon as you can get now, the cost was borne by NIPA. But the cost in some of the other areas is going to have to be provided by grants. And people are saying the money's going to be available or is available. You have to apply for it. And you folks all work with grants. It's a competitive process. So we wanted to be in the very best position so that when the money's available, to have all the background stuff done, and just apply for the grant. And
John, I think the key to that whole situation was NIPA had fiber going through there. And the development authority was able to come in and connect into their fiber to get it to these houses. It's not one where they just went out and ran down some random, back road to someone. So the infrastructure was there, it was just getting connected to it. And there still will be a private internet provider. They won't be paying the development authority for their internet. They're gonna pay, I believe it's split. Just like everybody else would, but they're traveling over to development authority.
Just, if I could, one more. What are you encouraging us to do as far as readiness for?
you've already done it. You have the telecommunications committee that's functioning. I don't know if any of you are on it, but that's the committee that is the center for developing it when the money becomes available. And it's important to have that ready to go. So that when it comes in, you're ready to go. You don't have to fool around with anything. You're ready to go that day.
And I would encourage your whole board, if not at least that committee. The authority has a presentation they made to us as board members that was extremely helpful in understanding it, seeing where the fiber is, how it all works and gets pulled together. I don't know, you're probably not aware, but they had the university games here this winter. That was all broadcast on ESPN. That all went through development authority. Like every bit of it, they set up all the information, all the timing, everything was done through the development authority. Now, people don't see that because we're watching ESPN, we're not watching a development authority channel. But I forget what it was, 26,000 hits a day trying to break into that system.
Trying to hack it.
Trying to hack it. 26,000 a day for the whole time it was operating. So quite, the firewalls that are required and everything, but I think you'd all be impressed seeing that presentation. 45 minutes or so, but really explain how it all worked and do far better now.
I'm glad that Joe asked the question regarding privatization under communication sources, and we're very pleased. Mark, when you said it was dead, and I was even more pleased, now said it was very good. That shows that we did send a message. Obviously, it was well received, so I appreciate that. The other thing I want to thank you for coming down here tonight. We talked about having someone present a representative that's come this presentation. Some frequency was very good. And I guess the other thing I would encourage, I had the opportunity of attending the tour of the facility, bank facility last fall. And I would encourage all of the legislators to take advantage. If possible, to set something up, to take advantage of the tour of the site. So it's impressive. well run. And, yeah, I think it would be, you signed it worth your time. Mr. Reed?
On the agenda tonight, you'll see a report from the American Rescue Plan Act Committee, in which we will be providing connections to 611 households, thanks to our partnership with DANK, thanks to their efforts to get out there and help us identify where the need is. And Margaret's efforts with the telecommunications committee in putting together a plan on what to do is paying off, and we're going to reach into a lot of rural areas that the private sector hasn't been able to do, but will do if we help provide some funding to encourage them to get to these houses. So, as everyone knows, it's going to get more difficult as you continue reaching out, and hopefully as more state and federal money becomes available, we'll continue following the pilot project that this represents. So we're on our way. We're a lot farther ahead than we would have been if we hadn't started working with DANK years ago to identify all these homes and all these areas that nobody wanted and nobody was going to serve. So I do appreciate all that DANK does. I appreciate its partnership with the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency on a lot of loan packages where they join the IDA and assisting area businesses so they can expand, and their efforts to work with our housing council and our county planning office to stretch those state and federal dollars to help improve our housing stock and help more people become homeowners. So, a lot of people don't, think when they think of DANK, they think, oh, it's Jefferson County. Over the past number of years, we've seen more and more of an effort by the Development Authority staff to become a useful arm of St. Lawrence County and area municipalities. And I think you people are doing a great job. They've been instrumental in providing technical expertise and assistance in doing a more regional approach to wastewater, both up in your area, Mark, and over into Dodge's area. This is the future, and thank you for your efforts.
We do have a satellite office, incidentally, in the BOCES office building. So we're very interested. I think if you look at the map of just about every town in the 21 towns, just about everyone is involved in some way with the development authority or with our housing people. We have a division, people on the staff who that's all they do is manage these housing grants, apply for grants and help manage them. And you work with the housing council and whatever is necessary, because we have the expertise and it's such a broad area, you can afford to have people where locally you may not, because there's just not enough money in these grants for admin to to do a job you really want to be able to do. So we help wherever we.
I think just to expand on what Jim said a little bit more. I had experience with the Development Authority as a user. I was a town supervisor. I was a water plant operator, still am. And I hired the Development Authority basically to fulfill the role of a town engineer. Town of Fine, our small towns in St. Lawrence County cannot afford to have an engineer on staff. So when a project, we had to do an improvement project, hired the Development Authority and their engineering staff to oversee the consulting engineer. They didn't take work away from the consulting engineer who still made the plans and did the project, but they were able to represent us with an engineering background to make the project go so much better. Because if you rely on me as a town supervisor, or even as a water operator, I've never done a project like that before, you don't have the experience. Town boards don't have the experience to know what should be done and what shouldn't be done. Bringing in a third party to basically help you manage and get through and work with your hired engineers was just remarkable. And it turned out to be such a better project because of that.
Ms. Iyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Mr. Boatnauer from our planning department will back me up on this, but during the process of putting the maps together, Dave and Michelle were fantastic and were an integral part of that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming tonight because the group that came together was phenomenal. And that's why we're, I think, in part at the place we are right now. Thank you.
Well, that's important to hear. Well, also, no other questions, the CEO of the Development Authority, he just took a vacation, takes a week off, and he went to Florida. So that's why he's not here. But what I'd like to do, me speaking in line with the presentation on telecommunications, that he's a staff member of telecommunications department. And it is amazing to see that. So maybe we could, in a little while, we don't want to get too much of it, but have him come up or maybe to your committee and give that presentation. I mean, it helps you understand something that other than I can say the word telecommunications, but I don't have much of an idea for what happens after you turn the TV on. I mean, the picture is great, but don't ask me why it got there, because I have no idea. He makes all that stuff a whole lot simpler. For example, in my town, Verizon in the town of Fowler, which is the only town north of Syracuse that has complete fiber optic to the house. I got 800 gigabytes per second or whatever it is, some phenomenal thing. And I don't think that's something in the future, but for some reason Verizon had to do it. I don't know, somebody probably made them do it, but they ran fiber optic down roads that'll never have anybody living on. But the telephone line went down there and they taped it right to the telephone. There were Verizon trucks all over the place. It was almost a problem with traffic control because there's so many Verizon trucks setting these things up. And they went through the whole town, with the exception of a small part of Sylvia Lake, and boy, are they on. But they got it.
I think we're over our 10 minutes.
Okay,
Just a little.
good enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and thank you for trusting Alex and I to represent you with the Development Authority.
Twenty 2023 budget for the department. The funding received. I made a motion. second. Correct, thank you.
We're outside. I am just. And relation. To portion. County road. Damage, so. Yeah.
Any discussion? Floyd?
Is there any provision that would cover something like this through CHIPS, the state program and federal program also, if I'm correct, where you have extraordinary wear and tear on a road for such an important reason as installing, power lines that would cover or at least contribute to the remediation of those damaged roads? Typically, the CHIPS is a state. Only. Right. Like. Certifying project. Like 10 years, but we don't have anything. Funds something like this. So then it, much like what we did, it's up to the locale, the county or whomever to do something that's going to at least anticipate things like this and put something in place that can handle it, much like you did. That's correct. All right. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Second one, authorizing the chair to sign a contract with J. Sheehan Contracting Corporation for rehabilitation of Skate Creek Road Bridge over Osabachi River, EIN 3340930, town of Pine. Thank you. Second. Joe, thank you.
Thank you. This resolution authorizing agreement with J. Sheehan Contracting Corporation for rehabilitation structure. Steel truss associated with 2022. By purchasing materials last year, this year installed. This cost associated with this project.
Any sections, Burger? Denise?
What's the anticipated?
We have not had a pre-construction meeting with Sheehan's. That's this. Town roads, but should be closing down and opening. So there's days.
Contact.
On favor?
Right.
Third one is for approving a federal aid local project supplemental agreement for the right of way acquisition for the Lacey Versus Bridge over the Grass River, PIN 775-332, PIN 334-1820. Have a motion. Spur, a second. Spur, thank you.
Yes, thank you. This project has been. New York State. Agency. And the. Then I can. Structure. Three.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Fourth one is for authorizing the county of St. Louis to accept the real property owned by the state of New York relative to the Leaf River Grass Bridge Replacement Project. PIN 7753.2, PIN 334-1820. Have a motion? Thank you. Second. Ms. Perkins, thank you.
Yes, thank you. The project that we were just discussing, there are the 4 strip parcels along the roadway, and this is basically an company resolution for them to just authorize to obtain that real estate.
Sorry. We good? Sorry, still up for discussion? All right, go for a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Moving along here to authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Barton Longitude DPC for design and environmental permitting proposed multi-use trail segment from Morgan Road to Pickville Road. First, Perkins, second, Rita, thank you.
Thank you. The multi-use trail is operated, a lot of permits are sold. Highways. Local law authorizes. But.
So as some of you may know, we applied for an ARPA grant. We were approved in the fall for a $40,000 bridge to be put in on this critical connection for us to connect the multi-use trail. It's the center section we've been working on since 2006, looking at different options to find out what would be the best way to open this segment. And we've been able to find a connection around the forest preserve, using, conservation easement and private land. So we're very excited to move forward with the next step, which is the design and the environmental permitting for the abutments for the bridge. So, we would like to apply not to exceed for $25,000 to cover this next steps in our process.
And then, this resolution actually authorizes Barton to use that work for appendix A, which is a part of the FGIS, the environmental statement study. And extensive environmental study done, and then anytime we add an additional portion, an appendix A needs to be done.
Any discussion? Mr. Perkins?
This is a very critical parcel here that we're looking at for the trail system. And so we do need to get this study done. I would ask everybody to support this. It's very important.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Authorizing the chair to sign a St. Lawrence River Valley Redevelopment Agency and Community Development Environmental Improvement Fund application for the multi-use recreational trail system in St. Lawrence County. Motion. Thank you. Second. Perkins, thank you.
Thank you. On this, again, that was hard on the grant.
So we realize we need to cover our Barton proposals, so we would like to apply for the RVRDA grant to be able to cover these funds. We do have our trail pass funds also, but that's used mainly for maintenance on the trails. We hope this RVRDA grant will help us cover the proposal for us to move forward with our project. We can take it going more.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And lastly, resolution authorizing the submission of comments and recommendations to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation regarding South Pacific Conservation Easement Recreation Management Plan. First the motion, Perkins, maybe a second. Manish, thank you.
As you can see, all these are pretty much related to this area, but one of parents utilize these. New York State see that use in their plan. So I think that's basically this would be the board speaking, asking for.
Our snowmobile trails do present. As I said. Connection to the work. Trails. On this private landowner that's going to let us use conservation. Connecting private lands, to make this process possible.
Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is also important. On the DEC's website, they have a survey, and I encourage all of you to go on there and fill out the survey and ask anybody who uses the trail system to fill it out, and definitely check the box for motorized vehicle use. It's important to get this. Thank
Three.
Yeah, how many permits have we sold for multi-use trail?
Bring my notes in on that tonight, but we did have $90,000 receipts last year for multi-use trail passes sold.
Around 15, but none for this year. They're annual sold on an annual basis, around 15.
1,500.
500 permits. Somewhere. in there. They're only.
Any other questions? That's all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, move forward, going into the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And right there, excellent. This is for, excuse me, modifying the PY 2022 WIOA budget for transfer formula funds from dissipated worker accounts to adult accounts. Can you get a motion? Perkins, make a second. Brown, thank you. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you. Under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act program, every dislocated worker is eligible as an adult, but not every adult is eligible as a dislocated worker. This transfer allows the flexibility to serve more individuals with the understanding that no dislocated worker will be denied services due to this transfer. This has been approved by the Workforce Development Board at its January 11th quarterly meeting. In addition to serving more individuals, the transfer supports us in reaching the 80% expenditure for both funding sources.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. All right. We're now going to our attorney, Mr. Button. So this is for studying the allocation algorithm for the workers' compensation plan participants for 2024, 25, and 26. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Rodriguez, a second. So Lightfoot, thank you.
Thank you. Well, long time no see, everyone. Not too long ago, I was regaling you all with the wonderful job that the board had done in 2017, recognizing the need to change the allocation algorithm from an allocation algorithm that was based on tax assessed properties plus risk, payroll, and experience solely to 100% risk, payroll, experience model. Every 3 years pursuant to our local law that was adopted in 1956, the Board of Legislators must establish an allocation algorithm that really identifies how we're going to distribute the cost of the operation of our self-insurance workers' compensation plan to our plan participants. And based on this algorithm, we pull together the numbers annually and present those to our plan participants. In 2017, we switched off of that real property tax assessment setup. It was actually a long time coming. There was a process that essentially 10 to 15 years where the board slowly, incrementally moved to that 50-50 setup that we had in 2017, and then it adopted the full 100% setup in 2017. Well, one of the things that happens when you adopt a full 100% risk payroll experience model is you can't go back. So adoption of this formula is fairly, for lack of a better term, formulaic. We actually have to adopt a risk payroll experience model now, having completely abandoned the tax assessed model that was there prior to 2017. So this resolution would adopt that formula for another 3 years. After this resolution is adopted, presuming that the board adopts it, then my team will take this out, allocation algorithm. We will pull together the data regarding the payroll, regarding the number of claims that have occurred over the course of the last few years, with respect to the risk codes that are assigned by the insurance rating board, and we'll come up with that allocation amount that has to be assigned to each of the communities that you represent, with those numbers coming back before the board sometime in July or August, with the expectation they'll be out to towns, villages, and the city sometime in August.
Any discussion? Okay, moving on with that, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Second one is for authorizing and approving a settled agreement between Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and St. Lawrence County with respect to an action related to the opioid crisis. May I have a motion? Mr. Braun, second. Mr. Burgess, thank you.
Thank you. The board is very familiar with the fact that for the last several years, we've been involved in litigation associated with the impact of a misrepresentation on opioid distributions in our community. We've reached several settlements that are referenced within the whereas provisions of the resolution that's before you. We've been presented with an opportunity to join in on the resolution of the Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens settlement as well. They're also named defendants as a part of the distribution mechanism for the opioids in St. Lawrence County in general, or excuse me, in specific, and New York State in general. If the board adopts this, there is a process by which we will get this money distributed to us over a specific amount of time. The amount that would come in is actually not a large amount comparatively to some of the other contributors. However, cumulatively to date, we're over $4 million on resolutions associated with the opioid epidemic, and that does not include the Purdue Pharma settlement. The Purdue Pharma settlement, if you recall, got held up as a part of their bankruptcy proceeding, but that was the largest component. If we receive what the Purdue Pharma settlement was prior to the announcement of the bankruptcy proceeding, then we'd be over $8 million that is to be spread out, some as quickly as immediate distribution, some to be spread out over the course of 18 years. So a very long period for recovery, but a fairly sizable amount of money that would be coming to the county.
Mr. Perkins, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any restrictions on this money and how it's spent?
There are actually, almost all of our settlements have had certain restrictions. Many of them have looked like a 50-50 setup. 50% of the recovery has to be geared towards activities that are specifically designed to either address prior expenses related to opioid response or to deal with future abatement. The other 50% has been essentially unrestricted. We have a spreadsheet that has broken out when those distributions will come and how much of them are restricted and unrestricted. And I believe that could probably be shared with the board if the board would be interested in taking.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Sir.
Unfortunately, for Thank you.
It says. So this is for the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators to support a request by the city of Augsburg that supports Senate Bill S4810 and Assembly Bill A5276 that allows the taxation of state property located in the city of Augsburg. Yeah, Chris, Lightfoot second, great, you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our last meeting, Chairman Forsythe asked the board, made the board aware that he was going to be introducing this resolution. Mr. Forsythe and I were both asked to introduce this. Our state legislators have introduced this in the state legislature. The hope is to convince the state legislature to provide tax relief to the city of Ogdensburg, which has a lot of tax exempt property that is not being used, unlike colleges and the New York Power Authority and such. The city of Ogdensburg has a great deal of abandoned psychiatric center buildings that the state won't turn loose. And it's our desire to, if they won't turn them loose, to allow to pay taxes on them and pay taxes on some of the vacant property. They own a large portion of Ogdensburg shoreline. And I would ask everyone to support this.
Nisha,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When Chairman Forsythe over this last week, I thought it was a great idea. And I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Lightfoot,
And I too think it's a good idea too, and I think it is a wise move on the part of the chairman to enter into discussion with the city and to do this. It's no cost to the county. It's a lot of goodwill, and in my estimation, it is anyway. And I also would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Yes, I would also like to be added as a co-sponsor. There's beautiful shoreline there that could be developed that is just sitting vacant, and there could be a lot of tax appreciated by the city if they were able to use the land that should really be theirs. I don't see how the state hangs on to stuff like that. It both costs people tax money and allows things to just collapse around them.
well,
Mr. Chairman,
one
Mr.
second.
Chairman,
Yeah, I'll get to you in 1 second, Ms. Sheridan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to be added as a co-sponsor as well. I think if our advocacy on this can give an effective message to the powers that be, that's all for all the better.
Okay. Ms. Sheridan,
yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also would like to be added as a co-sponsor. It's hard to imagine why a certain group of people in Albany would vote against this common sense idea that involves home rule and helping out a city that's in distress. So I would like to be added.
I agree with all that's been said. I'd like to be added as co-sponsor.
okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, legislator Burke. This is for commemorating the bicentennial of the town of Norfolk, sorry, can I get a motion? Perkins, second, Rita, thank you.
Town of Norfolk has a very rich history, as you can see by the outline of the solution. They've made some significant contributions to our county. And I appreciate Ruth, the county historian, bringing this forward for us to vote on. Bog War, in case anybody's wondering about it, I never heard of the term before, but it's a very impure form of iron ore that's in the swamps that they use for the furnace factory. So just a point of interest.
Questions for? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, going to the American Rescue Plan, the ARPA update. First. Yeah. Got it. So this is authorizing the chair to sign contracts appropriating the ARPA funds for the purpose of funding broadband development and installation projects modifying the budget for the county administrator's office. Make it first, Perkins, second, Reagan, thank you.
This resolution comes to you after a lot of work by both members of the former committee as well as the current committee, and then reviewed both by a staff level group who now are through the ARPA committee. So lots of eyes have been on this discussion. I've asked Jason to speak to the work. They carried the lion's share in planning with some assistance, as was mentioned earlier, from the Development Authority. But many hands have helped lift this forward and bring it to you tonight. Jason?
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you all. Yes, it's the echo Ruth's comments about the teamwork that went into this. It was a lengthy process, but I think very thorough, very excellent outcome. So just a little bit of background on the RFP itself. RFP was put out to solicit proposals from local internet service providers to leverage what they could provide with what you provided through your ARPA allocation of $3 million to broadband. So so that process, or that was relayed in the RFP. The RFP was proposals were due back in the beginning of this month, 7th of March. We received a number of proposals from 4 different vendors. Then the U committee got together, it was made up of members of the planning office staff as well as members of the bank, their broadband people, and came together with a scoring matrix. Dylan helped our office prepare the scoring matrix, went through, voted or scored all the projects, and what you see in the resolution tonight here is the outcome of those scoring. 16 lots out of the 21 that were let in the proposal are being brought forward here for your consideration for funding. The total, and there are just 2 minor typos in the resolution here, that the total allocation is $2,937,515 rather than 14,07,515. The other one, when we get to the so as you can see there are the 16 lots, the majority of them, 15 are proposed to be awarded to Slick Network Solutions, and 1 to Adirondack Techs, and that's where the other typo is. That should be 111,163. This is a great step forward. It will address 611 households in really a cross section of the county. You can see the distribution there widespread from north to south, east to west. So we feel really good about the cross county distribution of these 611 connection points. There was some in the discussion earlier with Dank, there was some discussion about how many people are still lacking broadband in the county, and the number that we had developed over a pretty intensive narrowing of the data that we have is 1,304. So we'll be covering almost 50% of that with the 611. 46.8% will be addressed through this this allocation. That's right.
Okay. Okay, great, perfect, okay, thank you. So this map, yeah, it shows the distribution. You can see the blue dots in the northern part of the county. Is of the 611, moving out there are 611 blue dots on that map there. And the rest of the yellow and red are those areas that still need to be addressed there as part of the 1304. So it does show, more of a distribution in the northern, southern, northern and eastern, western portions. The challenges in the southern part of the county, other than that one, fine as well. 66 units down, kind of fine. But in Bolton area, Piercefield, Hopkinton, those are really, really remote sites. So that's why those sites are we're probably not bid on by the ISPs. So we have plans for how we're going to address the rest of these dots that are not being through other programs, through other funding programs, also some other technologies that are out there, and the specific fiber that is run on a telephone pole that works where there are telephone poles. But if there are areas where there are not, or they're widespread, then something is called fixed wireless may be an option where you can project signal through cell towers or through other fixed assets and vertical assets. So thank you for the any questions on the map or anything? Yeah. So just we was just suggesting this with the idea of you've often heard the term fiber to the home. This is fiber to basically the in front of the home or to the street side. Putting fiber right into the home is certainly would elevate the cost. It would also it would maybe make it not as equitable because some people may not want it. Some people may be further off of the roadside than others, and so that there would be a disproportionate expense associated with going back 500, 800 feet. So this is these sites, these 611 drops will be the fiber line going in front of the home. Then the applicant, the resident would have the option to hook up to this fiber. And there are lots of programs out there that can assist with that last connection through the ARP program will just fund through the federal government and other individual programs that are out there that will help that last connection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, you said there's 1,304 places left.
Correct.
Now, did you get these numbers, all these people from the survey that we put out Is that only where the information came from? Because I'm wondering how many people did
Right.
fill that out.
Yeah, the survey, actually, that number that we got out of the work from the ECC group started off at about 4,800 units unserved. And we've done a lot of call it ground truthing, going out and narrowing down, okay, who is providing service in this part of the county. We were, had a great assistance from Spectrum. They provided a lot of information about where their services are, so we were able to further that. You know, 1,304 is a pretty specific number. You have to change on a daily basis, right? It might be 1,306, it might be 1,350, but we're pretty confident that around that number is what we have.
My concern, you actually said it, my district, Hopkinton, Harrisville. In Pierpont, I get calls frequently because they don't have access. And so I'm just curious when things might happen there, if there's other avenues is all.
Yeah,
So the rest of them are just gonna be in more remote, it's gonna cost more.
exactly.
Okay.
If I could real quick, just mention that just value just a little bit, how much endurance both the original committee and the current committee had in the work that they've done. This was actually the third RFP that went out. The first received no responses. We were looking really to maximize the 3 million that the ARPA committee approved and try to match those up with the Reconnect federal dollars to make them go further to more remote, more expensive areas. That received no responses. So the group retooled their approach, put back out another RFP, to which we did secure a vendor that couldn't see through the match with the grants relative to some other work that they were doing. And so this was the third version that we actually followed more in line with the Lewis County model. And we have finally seen results. So I thank all of them. That really took some staying power to retool and continue to ask the public to get in on this process. So it has been a very long process, but continued effort on all of their parts. And this, as a reminder, represents 15% of the overall 20.9 million of the ARPA funds.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify Jason, there's 611 being funded. So are there 700 left or 1,300 left?
700.
So there's 700 left. So we're reaching about almost 50%.
46.8%, yeah.
And I'd like to thank the Telecommunications Committee and its chairman, Margaret Haggard, for the hard work they did in gearing up to do this. And when the lines are dropped out in front of the 611 homes, is there going to be any outreach to them to let them know about whatever assistance you're talking about to help them get it to their house? As many of us know, there are people out in the rural areas whose homes they chose for whatever reason to build back from the road. And when they find out the cost of that connection to the road, tend to call the legislators or their state legislators or their federal representatives and say, well, this is nuts. You know, how's this going to work? So I want to thank you for all the hard work staff has put into this. I really feel that we as a county have made some real progress thanks to our staff and thanks to the leadership of this board in addressing a stubborn problem. The reality is a lot of these companies have not wanted, well, they're, you know, investor owned and they have an obligation to their investors to get a return on their investment. And if we weren't investing some of the American Rescue Plan Act into this, it would never happen. So I think long-term, this will benefit the entire county by helping people to start small businesses in their home, educate their children better, you know, and for families to take advantage of the internet. So in this day and age, this is very much akin to back when the Rural Electrical Administration was electrifying rural homes, which back in the turn of the century was, you know, very important in changing the lives of many of our rural families.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Mr. Reagan clarifying that it's not 1,300 left. It's the difference between the 1,300. Additionally, I appreciate all the shout outs, but as of January, Mr. Chair, the chair of the broadband committee, but thank you very much. I want to point that out. Thank you.
My apologies, Mr. Chair.
It's okay, you'll feel it in your broadband speed. Tunisia.
Sure. I just want to say that, you know, when we first heard we were going to get the 20 some million dollars from ARPA funds, there were a lot of folks who were trying to tell us how we should spend it. And we made the decision to spend money where it was going to benefit the greatest number of people. And we spent $3 million. We allocated $3 million for broadband, which is going to get people all over the county. $3 million for water and sewer, which is a huge. $5 million for emergency services. We help not-for-profits, CDL training. Who hasn't seen the tractor trailer from SUNY Canton with a big kangaroo on it? Daycare training. So this is just another, one more piece of the puzzle that shows that we made the right decision. And thank you.
I'm not going to repeat what these two guys just said. I agree 100% with everything that you both said. And I think that we have made a giant step towards trying to eliminate a huge problem that particularly affects our school children. So I think that's important, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so, so just the update information, the committee as it is constituted for 2023, gathered last Wednesday, both to review a current status and be able to ask any questions about where we were. We talked about the Clifton Pine Hospital, which many of you may have seen some recent press about additional funding they received. So we're hopeful that contract will be signed soon. We're moving forward. We know that the IDA has put a lot of funds out there already with regard to the small business programs that they're running. We're finalizing that contract as well. And we also talked about some of the other areas. 11 of 12 of the utility, the water and sewer contracts have been returned. So those, I believe, will be moving forward as well. That's progress has been made there. I spoke 2 meetings ago, I think, on the Emerald Ash Borer project that's moved forward as well. So there's been a significant progress. We revisited the request for the airboat that is currently $158,000 short. We have made a request, a federal request for the balance of those funds because there is $100,000 set aside of ARPA funds for this purpose. And the committee determined that if we aren't able to secure the balance of that, then we'll revisit that at their next meeting. and make a determination and potentially shift some funds toward that end, because it does take a year once ordered to receive the airboat. So we're going to keep, the group decided to keep the same cadence that we had been using, which is when there are matters either changing or coming up for consideration, the ARPA group will meet the week before finance. But if there's months where there's not as much activity, I will give you the status and keep you all informed, and the committee will, will wait until there is action to be taken. So they're pleased, I think, to continue in that mode going forward. Any questions on American Rescue Plan funds? Okay, thank you, everyone.
Back again, yes. So back to the county administrator's report. Again, we're skipping, as we talked in the first part of today, A is right off that agenda right now. So going straight into B, which is modifying the 2023 budget for the county administrator's office to be upgraded electronic work order software to include a smartphone application. I have a motion. First, yeah, second. Mr. Hall, thank you.
This resolution, I have with us tonight Superintendent Jim Traffin, here to speak to this for you.
So we're currently using the Impulse work order system. Basically, the county staff can submit a work request. Currently, we're using hard copies. Doing the work. So it's a little bit cumbersome. What we'd like to do is upgrade the systems. Job site. So really streamlined.
Any question? Mr. Hall?
Is this an annual?
This is a one-time expense to this out. And it just. So it would take us to annually for the whole program.
Mr. Nisha?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm pleased to see this. We're getting into the 21st century.
Yeah, it is.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oops. Motion carried. Okay. Authorizing the chair to sign a contract for heating and cooling water system treatment and Legionella prevention program services for county buildings. We have motion. Brand second, Ms. Perkins, thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So we're required to test our cooling towers. There's no risk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next under here is celebrating April as National County Government. First, thank you. Second, Perkins.
In this resolution, we are celebrating National County Government Month. It's the first time that we have had the opportunity to put this into place, certainly with the help of our historian. We're able to take a look at some activities. We have been for a while now interested in increasing the visits from our area schools. And the Youth Bureau is working with our historian to tailor tours around to departments that can both entertain in the courthouse, so that they can also see where voting, happens, but also depending on their ages, visit a variety of other departments as well as the courts. So that we've been working on, but this resolution also commemorates a milestone birthday of an original member of the St. Lawrence County Legislators, and that will be the 90th birthday, this April 22nd, for Ernest LeBac.
Great.
I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, and I particularly am pleased that we're going to be honoring former legislator Ernie LeBac. Back when I started covering the county government back in 1982 and attending the meetings here, Ernie was a very strong and effective legislator who did not mind standing up and being counted on controversial issues of all kinds. But at the same time, he was also someone who always was willing to work across the aisles and set a standard for congeniality between both political sides. And I've worked with Mr. LeBac over the past all these many years on a host of different things, and currently am proud to work with him at the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency, where he has been a model member and someone who has always stood up to ensure that the IDA is bipartisan and regardless of which party has been in power here on the county legislature. And so it's refreshing to see that kind of bipartisanship. And I'm proud that we are going to be honoring someone who has established such a legacy, not just in county government, but internationally as a former international president of the Aluminum Brick Glass Workers International Union, as well as the steel workers. So Ernie has been a voice for the North Country low these many years.
Mr. Chairman,
I hear you. I'll get to you, your third, Mr. Chair. Go ahead, Ms. Haggard. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to be added as a sponsor. Please thank Mr. Reagan for his eloquent.
So
I think we've all known Ernie, well, maybe not all of us. If we don't know Ernie personally, we've certainly heard his name mentioned many times over and over. I can remember in years past listening to and reading of the board meetings that went on over here in a smoke-filled room. And Ernie LeBac's comments and inspirational talks that he gave to the members of this legislature at the time. And I say that tongue in cheek. It was more of a teacher trying to handle school children. Not that I'm equating the board members here at the time as being school children, but Ernie LeBac knew how to get a point across, and he did it time and time again. for the betterment of St. Lawrence County. No, I don't believe I ever heard of Ernie LeBapp doing anything because of personal reasons. It was always for the good of the county. And that's the way it ought to be. And I'm honored to be able to vote in favor of this resolution. And I also would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Sheridan. Okay, Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also served with Ernie LeBaff in the 80s on that legislative board. And you talk about a colorful character. He could have his worst enemies laughing so hard that they couldn't stand up when he'd finish a speech. He was very humorous, good, and just everybody respected him on both sides of the aisle. He was known as a working man's legislator and representative. He was strong in the union, as strong as anyone I've ever known in the union. And just a nice guy to be around. And yeah, he was on the opposite side of the aisle, but boy, we had a lot of fun as on that board in the 80s with Ernie there. And so I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sheridan. Fay?
I was on the board in the 80s too, and Mr. Sheridan and me represented the same, not Mr. Sheridan, excuse me. And Ernie and me represented the same party, and we always didn't agree. When we got all done, we could always celebrate what happened. So thank you for having me as a sponsor, please.
Excellent. You should.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I first met Ernie back in the early 80s. And I worked for Alcoa, and Ernie was the president of the Aluminum Brick and Glass Workers Union. And we were sitting on opposite sides of the table during contract negotiations. And you know, I had a lot of respect for Ernie, gained a lot of respect for him during the negotiations. Considered him a friend. We always had a good relationship. Above board, he's straightforward, he's to the point. As Joe said, I don't think he ever did anything for personal gain. It was always for the betterment of the people that he represented. So proud to know him, and I would like to be added as.
Excellent.
I don't have a lot to add to what Jim and Joe and everybody else said. Other than to say that not only has he served the county well, he continues to serve at his ripe age. He's an amazing man, and again, I don't think anybody probably could comprehend the full contribution to the labor movement and the county in general. Great guy, and I'd like to be added as. Sure.
Well. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Excellent. Motion carried. Thank you. Yep, one more. This is for authorizing salary matrix changes for the CSCA grade 7 for 2023 and 2024. Motion. Thank you. Second.
So this resolution is a little unique in nature in that you traditionally don't see recommendations to do with the grading system in any of our unions come before you. Certainly not typically outside of a negotiation period either. However, when we're looking at the nutrition services aid, which is the only title currently categorized in a grade 7 in CSEA, we realized as the minimum wage continues to increase, and in our region, it increased at the beginning of the year, we fell behind. Now, you may recall that municipalities are not required to maintain a minimum wage. However, in this situation, the type of work that is required of our nutrition services aid, we quickly realized that we were losing folks to the occupations with separate schedules to what we offer. And that is some of your fast food establishments and other jobs that were paying more, in some cases, significantly more. And so we've had an opportunity to carefully review the position and the requirements of the position. We discussed the challenges and the important role that our nutrition services aid play in the process in Office for the Aging, and the meals that are provided on a daily basis, 5 days a week. We recommend the modest changes you see here that will take the current rate of $13.7788 up to a new hourly rate of $15. So what that will do is take from our grade 7 from an annual salary of $25,095 to $27,300. And that will make the hourly rate $15 per hour. The next grade, as I mentioned, is a grade 13, and that hourly rate is $18.77. So there is still a discrepancy of over $3.77 per hour between the two grades. Questions?
Mr. Burke, I think it's great that you spearheaded this route and thinking about Don's chambers mention of. I'm wondering if that shouldn't be expanded. It's costly. Don's operation and the county taxpayer, we lose. Should this department, the other department. But thank you for doing this.
The only other item I would add to this is that we have been in conversations with CSEA, and they are in favor of these changes.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Marty, did you have?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, Lane. All right, and all opposed? Motion carries.
Wanted to let you know, there's a couple large size maps in my office, and they depict for you the work that began today at Social Services. So I want to say 2020, although I need confirmation on that from Jason, we began talking about a better way to serve Judson Street from a public transit standpoint. And through some grant funding that we've been able to secure, Highway is going to carry out the work in front of Social Services to create a bus lane so that folks getting on and off the buses and also folks trying to drive on Judson Street have a safer passage through a very congested area. We expect the work to take approximately 2 weeks. Now, certainly with snow predicted for tomorrow, that may be weather dependent to get the work done. But our hope is that by the end of April, and as we begin what hopefully is real spring, we'll have this project complete. They also will be, before they get busy for the summer, taking a look at and repairing a collapsed culvert in the back parking lot for us as well. So when you see that, or if you hear anything about it, there is a project underway. And again, stop through in the office after the meeting, and you can take a look at the prints and the map that depict what's happening over there. Questions on that? Okay. Also wanted to mention to you that the resolution the board passed earlier this month with regard to sales tax, requesting the state put forward bills on our behalf to extend the 1% for another 3 years, will now need to be revisited. And that is because the state has changed their mind and are going back to 2 years. So you may recall in 2017, after many, many years of asking for home rule authority permanently, we were overjoyed to learn we'd be given 1 additional year. So every 3 years instead of every 2 years, we'd have to renew these requests for sales tax increase of the last 1%. So as we should for 2023, we were given a little reprieve in 2020 due to COVID. They passed it through with the budget, you may recall, and we didn't have to go through that exercise. So promptly, we passed the resolutions because we know lots of conversations are happening in Albany, only to hear we need to redo them. So I wanted to mention to you, we do have a Senate bill introduced. We do not have an Assembly bill, although we expect a same as to be introduced within the next few days. I would like permission to add the updated resolution, which will look exactly as the one did that you adopted, with an A after the bill numbers, so that we can resubmit all of the paperwork that would allow the New York State Legislature to consider our request. Any questions? We just figured out the rules and changing them again. So also, the surveys that I sent out 2 weeks ago have a 67% response rate, so thank you for that. We have a 60-40 in favor of going to the Governor and St. Lawrence County Fair. So we'll plan for that. And the way that we'll do that, if the board will oblige, I would like to switch the open week, which is the 24th, with the 31st. So our open week will be that 24th, and the 31st will have finance at the county fair. Secondly, the highway tour was a 90-10 split in favor of reinvigorating the tour. Typically that was, as I mentioned, long about August, when we're nearing substantial completion in a number of areas. We'll plan those and keep you up to date with to coordinate with all of your schedules. And it was 100% in favor of renewing the ag tour. So we'll talk with the planning board and get that organized for later this year as well. I have not seen any responses to the Smart Path Connect request, which we kind of worked off of a 6-month cadence with NIPA. So what I thought we would do is go ahead and schedule that with staff to attend, and then let you know the date, and if it fits, you're welcome to join us. Wanted to mention to you that you will be seeing with a population in the jail now of a steady 120 to 130, which is significantly higher than we've seen in recent years. We're at 131 as of last week, 110 males and 21 females, and that is with 61 on the MAP program. And so as a result of that, you may recall that we were conservative in our budgeting without knowledge, only having implemented in October of 2022, what those numbers would look like. We budgeted 150,000, but I also set aside 550,000 in contingency for this purpose. Well, as it turns out, April will be here and we will already need a budget modification. So I'll bring that to you at operations next month through the sheriff's office, as well as with the population increasing as it has, an increase in general prescriptions, and that will be another 300,000 to 400,000. So you'll be seeing those with the population that we're seeing, and I'll ask the sheriff to give you an update on how the MAP program is going. Questions on that? Okay, and the last item,
Sorry, you said general prescription.
medical supplies, general medications, things of that nature is up as well with the population that's increased.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
And the last item, wanted just to mention, still in conversations, and I'll explain a little bit more on that a little later tonight with regards to the indigent defense contract. But I did want to mention that the Rural Law Center, if you remember, the appeals are not completed by our local attorneys. We contract with the Rural Law Center for those services, and that contract will complete this month. So we'll bring you an updated one. I'll add that to the board packet. Any questions or any other general questions? Okay, that's awesome.
Thank you. Committee reports. We're now Cooperative Extension Board, Mr. Nisha.
Sure. Glad the ag tour was 100%, because we had a Cornell Cooperative Extension meeting last Thursday on the 23rd, and I mentioned the poll being taken on that. I actually mentioned about when we went to poll bearers last time, and there were a couple of legislators.
We talking about?
But anyway, yeah, the ag tour it's a great thing, and the folks at Cooperative Extension are excited. We did have a presentation by Salem's Community Health Initiative in regards to the Bridge to Wellness presentation, and they're working in cooperation with Cooperative Extension, Simmons County Public Health, and it was interesting. It focused on health, but also looked at valuing diversity, equity, and inclusion. As far as 4-H, here 4-H. The Cooperative Extension Program is offering many events and programs. There were Maple tours this year. Winter break special classes, vet science, so 20 students enrolled. Vet science for SUNY Canton, 20 enrolled. Shooting sports. I was surprised that with a lot of things that are going on, shooting sports is still a big draw. 31 students that were involved. There were outside of the shooting courts. And Northland Farm Day Camp enrollment for the summer is already 92% full. So that's cool. Oh, and our next meeting is Thursday, May 25th.
That's- Let's go into the Fish and Wildlife Management Board, Mr. Sheridan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Region 6 Fish and Wildlife Committee met virtually on March 16th. Gregory Howe and myself attended as the two representatives for St. Lawrence County. Region 6 consists of 5 counties, which takes in the Western Adirondack and Eastern Lake Ontario region of upstate New York. And the counties involved are St. Lawrence, Jefferson, Herkimer, Lewis, and Oneida counties. The first thing on the agenda was for elections of the officers. And as a result, yours truly became their next legislative representative, which will mean a couple trips to Albany each year, I guess, from what I can gather. And after that, I just wanted to point out that we received an interesting report that was sent to the board members prior to the meeting regarding the economic impact and the economic contributions that the hunters in New York State have on our economy. And it's interesting to point out that in New York State, there's 865,000 hunters that spent $2.8 billion. And they spent that on hunting related purchases. And the total multiplier effect is 3.8 billion. And the jobs amount to 22,700 jobs. Salaries and wages, $1.3 billion. And state and local taxes, $265 million. Federal taxes, $310 million. And on the national level, there are 15 million hunters in the United States. And in 2020, they spent $49.4 billion on hunting purchases. It gives you an idea of how important the hunters are to our economy in the North Country. And then there was some discussion in the meeting relative to the initiatives that are going to come that came about last year in the state budget on the Environmental Bond Act. We talked a little bit about that. They also discussed the Community Protection Act, where they predict a lot of activity with some of the changes coming in the very near future. The plan was signed into law to address climate change and reach net zero emissions. And their goal was to reduce emissions to 40% below 1990 levels and by 2030, and then 85% below 1990 levels by 2050. And then they discussed the wetlands. That's another act that just was enacted. That's also on the forefront of some of the changes that happened in last year's state budget, which we will be seeing some activity on it this year. And that protects over 1 million acres of critically important freshwater wetlands. Before the agreement happened, New York State wetlands had to be included on official state maps before they could be protected by the DEC, where there were concerns over the allowances of filling and draining, dredging, and and on unmapped wetlands. And then there's another, they did talk a little bit about, they've got their eyes on a couple of bills that have to do with the lead ban bills on ammunition. There's two in the state that they're banning lead on state lands and New York City watershed systems. So they're watching that closely. And if anyone has any questions about that, which I'm sure there will be a lot of people in this area that will, they can go to the DEC website, find out a little bit more information as things progress. Also, they got their eye looking, they're watching the 12 to 13-year-old hunting budget bill. And that money is in the state budget. And they're not sure if they can make the county to opt out. And because it was a pilot program before, we'll have to wait and see, they said. But they will be reaching out to approximately 1,700 lifetime hunting license holders who are turning 12 years old this calendar year. And the intent is to remind those license holders that they must now obtain their hunter education certification to activate their lifetime license, and let them know how to fulfill their hunter education requirement, and remind them to keep their license profile up to date. And they'll be providing them with contact information so they can reach with them with their questions. The other thing that they talked about in particular that has to do with St. Lawrence County is this year the operations crew for DEC will be putting up 35 new signs near the parking areas on streams where the public are allowed to trout fish. And so there are many sites that do not have those nice classic DEC ID signs in place, but that should change before the end of the summer. And one more thing, just to remind everyone that the DEC is hosting a St. Lawrence County Youth Turkey Hunt free program for youth ages 12 through 15 on April 22nd on a Saturday. And it's a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation today. They announced it the other day that the conservation police officers or environmental conservation officers are offering youth ages 12 through 15 the opportunity to hunt turkey this spring during the St. Lawrence County Youth Turkey Hunt. And the annual hunt with ECOs is a 2-day event that starts with an educational portion held at the Messina Rod and Gun Club. And that about does it for the report.
Yes, sir. Shit. With Mr. Arnell getting out, we'll go over the Fisheries Advisory Board. Mr. Smithers, the Governor Fair Board.
Nothing new to report at this time.
Sure. Anything for the Highway Solid and Waste Committee?
Nothing at this time.
The Industrial Development Agency, Mr. Reagan.
The idea will be meeting later this week.
Okay, thank you. The Recreational and Trails Advisory Board, Mr. Perkins, Mr. Webster.
Okay, the trails met, March 7th. Brooke Rouse from the chamber, she did a presentation on the St. Lawrence County Chamber's Trails website. It's a very good presentation. It's a great website. It highlights many different activities. It talks about, it shows the different trailheads for the multi-use trails, the parking, locations of businesses. There's many links on there, showing names, addresses, phone numbers. The website is phone friendly, like typical to an app out of my realm, but it is a very good website. I would encourage you to take a look at it to see all the diverse activities we have here in the county. Also, we talked about doing an economic impact survey for the snowmobile and ATVs used for additional funding avenues and lobbying to help with trails.
And lastly, the St. Lawrence River Valley Redevelopment Agency, chaired by Mr. Forsyth. So, going through the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Webster.
We had a breakfast Thursday. So I didn't realize it was breakfast, so I had a bag of 3 cups of coffee on the way. They had a good turnout. They're looking at combining or merging with Canton, Augsburg, and Messina, which I think would probably give them a lot more power and more, be able to do more, get involved in a lot more stuff, be able to move a lot more of the paperwork into it and stuff up where the local places can concentrate more on their business. They had a kids expo there about a week or so ago on Saturday. Had a really good turnout. That was really exciting. They're moving a lot more towards the internet digital, which is good for a lot of people and bad for a lot of us older folks. And they're doing a lot with that. Super, presentations and stuff and pushing more towards Canada, which I think is an absolute great idea. We'll get a lot more people coming down. They're doing more, I think, with the trail boards, which I think is a great thing too. Opening up more for them, and in turn, they can open up more businesses for them kind of working together. They had a lot going on. I was really surprised how much they had going on. A great group. A lot of people from the different towns showed up at breakfast. It was interesting talking to a lot of them. They all had different ideas. So, but it was a good breakfast. They have a lot going on. They're doing a good job. I think they got a ways to go, but you always will with the way things are changing around here. But they really are doing a great job.
And finally, the Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors.
I'll defer to Mr. Burke since this last week was my first meeting and I'm delighted to be on the board.
The county forester Aaron Berger continues to work on the replanting the trees, reforestation. And there's 105 acres of white pine that we're planning for parcel 21, which is the Parrishville area. Giovanna, the crop specialist, she's been doing crop management plans, and she's getting close to being AEM certified, which is, I don't know that we've ever had anybody in office that was a certified crop specialist. So it's quite an achievement. And they had statewide awards. Bob Andrews, the chairman of the our Soil and Water District, received the District Directors Award, and the County Forester received the Division III Merit Award. He was nominated actually by someone from the Franklin County office because of the partnerships that they've had and all the work that he's done with other communities. And, there was some discussion about how fortunate we were to have such talented staff in the soil and water. Again, Aaron is a certified arborist, which is pretty unusual to have in any of the district offices. And again, Anna is getting close to being AEM certified. It's a great partnership with the county. You know, as you all know, septic program, culverts, the Emerald Ash, in addition to all the soil and water conservation. I thought it was important to know how they were recognized statewide. Good recognition. Yeah, there's no meeting.
So the next meeting is May. Thank you. Moving forward to old new business. So this is for setting a date for a public hearing on proposed law for the year 2023. Exemptions for certain members of volunteer fire companies and ambulance services in St. Louis County pursuant to section 466-A of the real property tax law and repealing local law number 2 for the year 2005 in St. Louis County. So this is on the table and we need to motion to make it to remove it and for the consideration. So needed first to remove this from the table. It's like what?
If I'm not moving
Oh,
that, just a comment if I may.
Yeah.
I think we would be unwise to remove this from the table tonight. We've asked the fire chiefs to wade in and get back to us with information. We've got until the end of 2025, I think it is, before this has to be done. So I don't see that there's a, an emergent need to, do this right now and then. My feeling is that, and I hope you feel the same way, is to wait until we get that feedback from fire and EMT and see what we can do to, polish up what we're going to probably eventually approve. So that's my feeling.
Thanks. I concur with Legislator Lightfoot. We did speak with at the St. Louis County Fire Chiefs Association. We spoke briefly with some of the members there, but we do a fire advisory board meeting coming up. Will be a topic of discussion at the fire advisory board meeting. Representatives from the fire departments there, but yeah, we need to get some more feedback, and it's not.
It shall stay as it is then for until we get all our information. So going from there,
Point of order. And we still need to vote on whether to move it from the table.
not if there's an emotion. You go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. The next week's meeting, I intend to bring up a resolution asking our state representatives and the governor to support the Local Journalism Sustainability Act. It's a piece of legislation that is being pushed in Albany by local newspapers across the state to encourage having newspapers. This would provide tax credits to encourage publishers to employ reporters to cover local governments and events that are happening in their communities. As many of you may have figured out, I'm a strong proponent of community newspapers, and in a time of political polarization, I think it's very, very important that our communities find ways to keep citizens involved and keep citizens informed and help make citizens aware of their local governments, what's happening in their local governments, And this is a piece of legislation on the state level to help keep our local newspapers. And here in St. Lawrence County, we've been very lucky to see the Ogdensburg Journal come back, the St. Lawrence Plain Dealer come back. You know, hopefully we'll be able to keep the Messina and Potsdam Courier Observer, as well as North Country This Week, at a time when more than 2,200 newspapers across the country have closed their doors. It is vital to the to our democracy to keep our newspapers informing the public and providing reliable information as opposed to a lot of the rumors and things that they hear on the internet and really don't know whether or not to believe. So I just wanted to put the board on notice that I will be bringing that forward.
Any need for an executive session? Sorry.
Just one last thing, it's, I guess it's new business.
Sorry.
And goes on when Rick was talking about the Trails Advisory meeting, and obviously both Devin and Brooke were there. And you know, it morphed into tourism. Yes, and one of the things we talked about was motorcycle. And for those of you who don't, I'm an avid motorcycle. Well, anyway, I saw that Waddington is having a antique motorcycle association show, swap meet, vendors event on June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. This is this is really neat. This is a big thing. This is not just you know, a bunch of local people. This is a worldwide association. They have chapters in New Zealand, Germany, all over the world, and all over the country. They have road runs, and I don't think there's a run associated with this. But anyway, it's a good opportunity. There are people from all over. Hopefully, there'll be people from all over the country, all over, you know, maybe even from some other parts of the world to come. So as much publicity as we can get on this, Brooke and Deb. Great.
Any other new business?
We
Put your hand up. Like.
Stop scrunching down there.
We do have a need for executive session for negotiations, for litigation, for personnel, which is the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, potentially the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities or sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when would substantially affect the value thereof, and appointments.
We have a motion to go into session to discuss negotiation, litigation, personnel appointments. Thank you, Mr. Rowe. May I have a second? Mr. Rowe, thank you. Yeah, further business? Motion adjourned.